In this video, I want to talk about how we help our customers, you, to drive profits and achieve sustainable cash flow because I know I talk about it a lot and you may have some questions. I'm sure many people do. So, generally, you will use value levers to improve your cash flow and profitability. And the value levers tend to feed into some value drivers, and the value drivers, they determine the value of the company, and you identify these drivers by conducting a series of interrogation, investigation, analysis on your business. And there are many different tools that you can use in the marketplace to do this. And then, some of the drivers may be your profit margins, your profit, your cash flow, your revenue. And these are just some of the drivers that companies tend to use in construction. So I'm talking about construction companies. And then so those would be a driver. So they're like at the high level, this is what we're using to determine the value of our company. This is what we're using to determine if we are doing well in the marketplace. And then you'll have some levers, and these are like, the things that you pull. It's like close your eyes and vision a physical lever and you're pulling it. You're taking some action that feeds into that driver. And the action can be like daily or long term. So the levers tend to be operational. So these are the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. You know, we're going to do um, sales, marketing, whatever it is you come up with. This is what we're doing daily. And it can also be strategic. This is how we are going to increase our revenue. This is how we're going to grow. Some companies do that by mergers, buying other companies, buying competitors, doing JVs, for example. So you determine um, the value levers that feed into your value drivers. Now, in construction, companies tend to have these value drivers and levers, and one of them in construction is optimizing your contracting strategy, and that is where we come in. So we come in to help you to ensure that your contracting strategy fits what you are trying to achieve in your business. So it's some actions that you are going to take, whether it's daily or long term, that is going to help you to feed into your value drivers, which may be your profit margin, your cash flow, your overall profit, your revenue, um, whatever it is that you've determined to be your value driver. We help you um, to set up your contracting strategy, which is a value lever that feeds into that. And why is contract such a huge deal? Because, I get this quite a bit when I talk about contracting and contract strategy and aligning your contract to your business. And, you know, some people just don't get how important the construction contract is. And it is important because for a construction company, this is where your money sits. Your money sits under this document. Right? You do not get paid unless this document is administered. That's why you have your contract administrator. Unless it's complied with, which is why you have your commercial manager and your quantity surveyor. So this document that is often very complex is what determines if you are going to make any money from this project. And then, because it's a lever, it's feeding into your driver, and your driver is saying that the driver that we're using to determine the value of this business is, for example, the profit margins that we get for our projects, or the cash flow. Are we always in positive cash flow? um, or it may be the profit, the revenue that comes through the company, through the projects. And so that is why contracts are so important. That is why the construction contract is so important, especially because on construction projects, these projects, especially if it's a major project, they tend to be long term. It is not uncommon to be on a project, delivering a project for 5 years, 10 years, right? Especially some of these transformation projects, um, they that you are transforming a whole community by building your, let's say, your railway line or your depot, gentrification projects. They feed into a bigger business case, and so it is not uncommon for projects to be going on for multiple years. Housing developments, even a year is a long time to be sat on one project, because that's not typical in many other sectors, right? And business areas. So if you are going to be sat on a project for a period of time, and this contract is going to determine everything for your driver, your financial drivers at least, then of course you need to pay attention to this construction contract. You need to have a strategy, you need to have tactics, you need to have a tool belt, you need to have tools that you use and that you pull out daily. There need to be some set actions that you take daily, monthly, quarterly, yearly, that you are monitoring your contracts and that you're ensuring that you are doing the actions needed to achieve those drivers. And so optimizing your contracting strategy, therefore, is it's twofold. It's based on the business and what the business needs, what the business is using as its value driver, and it's also at the project level, because in construction, the project is delivered by a project team, and people tend to work in matrices, like in a matrix. And it means, therefore, that you may have a construction company and they have multiple projects. Let's say they have 5 projects. Therefore, they have 5 different project teams delivering that project. And these people may be sat on the site itself. So they're not sat in the headquarters delivering this project. Many of the team members will be sat on the project delivering the project. And so what would happen is you will have people from different areas of the business sitting on that site or on that project delivering it. So you may have, your commercial manager, your quantity surveyor, you'll have your designer, your engineer, your structural engineer, um, your M&E specialist. You have all these people from different areas of the business sitting together on site, and then you typically have replicas of these people sitting on all the projects that you have. And so you have to look at it from a business point of view, and which will, I think, will go more into the overall like strategy. So you remember I said that your lever can be operational and it can be strategic. Operation is more day to day, and strategic is more long term. So it can be business looking at more the long term contracting strategy for the business. Excuse me. And then for the project, we like to look at um, the the operation, the day to day contracting, what we're going to do day to day, the day to day actions that you take on this project that is going to feed up. And this is especially the case if the project is short, like 12 months to 18 months. If the project is long, like 5 to 10 years, then of course it requires a lot more consideration. And so based on that, our premises, or what we've concluded based on our experience, is that you don't treat every employer the same and you don't treat every contract the same. You have to come up with a strategy for each contract, for each project, for each employer, and work that strategy accordingly. It's also key to note, because this point that I make about don't treat every employee and contract the same, there is a condition, and that has to do with your business cycles. So when you're looking at your contracting strategy, you have to consider the business cycle, where the business is at right now, what's going on, and what's going on out there in the market. So you may have a situation where the market is really good, your bargaining power is really good because of where you sit in the market. And so therefore your contracting strategy will should reflect your your positioning, your power, everything that I could, in fact, right now I could have brought up our philosophy and our framework right here, because we do use it at this point as well. As I've said in previous videos, our philosophy and our framework, it's the thread that runs through everything that we do. And so we look at, what's your power right now? Where do you sit in the market? What is the balance of power that you can wield at this point in time? What are the strengths that you have, the advantages that you have, and we look at what is going on in the market. And that should help you to determine what your contracting strategy should be. So if you are in a market where you have a lot of pull, a lot of power, and there are not that many contractors like you in the market, or if they say you're a specialist contractor, there are not many competent specialist contractors doing what you're doing, then it means your bargaining power is really good. You're sat in a really good place, and your contracting strategy can reflect that wonderfully. You can be the type of contractor that walks away from a deal that, if you don't think it aligns with you. But let's say the market has changed and there are many new entrants into your area that you do, and there's a lot of competition, and they can undercut you on price and quality. Then your contracting strategy will look very different. It will look absolutely different. And so we've had clients like this, and we saw it, for example, during COVID, where with the lockdowns, and some contractors and some specialist contractors were better prepared to deal with it, and they could use that to demand higher wages for their staff who were willing to come out during COVID. um, they could demand an adjustment to the program, and there were just certain things that they could do because of the business cycle that they were in at that point in time, that the environment, the outside environment, um, influenced the business cycle during that time. So you have to look at the business cycle that you're in, and there are a number of things that feeds into the business cycle. So looking at the contracting strategy, there are some things that you're going to look at, that we are going to look at together, which is things like your project scope, your project size, the project complexity, the project risks, the capacity to deliver, your capacity to deliver, including, you know, the if you have the required resources to deliver it. Because, and I want to touch on this point, because if, for example, you know that you don't have the a full complement, like a really huge gang, and there are some timelines, that some deadlines, there are some cutoff points. The employer has been clear that, let's say section A of the project needs to be delivered by X time, and they can't. there's no leeway in that. And you know that you don't have the plant or the equipment or the materials or the gang, the employees or the contractors to deliver it, you know you can't meet that deadline, then that's something that you need to think about. So your capacity to deliver includes all of that, the timeline for the project, um, the program, whether or not you have the resources, um, including the cash flow. Because as you know, in a project, many cases you are financing the project until you put in your application for payment and get paid. So you have to be able to know your capacity at various different levels, at various different points, if you have the capacity to deliver. You also look at your delivery partners, who in the market, because you would have seen, the scope of work, the work breakdown, who you need to do what, when, where. And so you look in the market to see who is out there that is competent to deliver, these work, for example. You look at the packages. How are you going to let the packages? Are you going to bundle them? Are i- are there packages that only X supply can do it, and therefore you're going to have to go through the process of getting authorization let let the package to that one supplier, for example. And then we look at the selection of the delivery. So we look at how you decide that you're going to deliver the project. What is the route that you're going to take? What is the contract that you're going to use? And if it's a case where you have, it's a tender and you have received a draft contract, a standard form, eh, just understand that it doesn't mean that you are in less of a position, because as I've explained in previous videos, working with us, we would have come up with your playbook, would have come up with your benchmark, your standard terms, your non-negotiables, the clauses and the things and the elements and everything that fit within your business, aligning with your goals and your vision. And so what you're looking for in that standard form to match it up to what it is that you've determined is the best for you. And so never think that because the contract is selected, if you're, for example, if you're a tier 2 contractor and the contract is already selected by your tier 1 contractor, like, or the employer, that you have no bargaining power. That is not the case, right? Selection of delivery still applies to you, because you still need to determine if the contract that they have selected is the right contract. And we've had situations with the clients before where the contract that was selected by the employer was clearly incorrect, not fit for purpose, absolutely not fit for the project. It's clear that they took some standard form that they had that was not appropriate for the project that they're looking to let. And we simply go back to them and say, this standard form, the form that you've chosen for this is incorrect, and we suggest another form. Yeah, and we may suggest the name of a form to them or the type of contract that is best suited. And they'll often go away, consult with their lawyers, and come back and say, no, this is what we want to use, or okay, yes, this, let's select another form of contract. So never ever think that because you are a tier 2 contractor, that in the selection of like delivery partners and the selection of the contract and all that you have no bargaining power. That is absolutely not the case. What you need is to ensure that you have your contracting strategy, that you optimize this as one of your value levers, And that's when you're going to start paying attention to your contracting strategy and the way you contract, the construction contracts that you negotiate and accept and execute. Once it becomes a value lever for your company, no longer are you going to be sitting on the fence, or no longer are you going to be looking at the construction contract like whatever, we just take it and go. You just sign, and you're not going to look at that anymore, because now you're going to realize the impact that it has on your value drivers, which ultimately is going to be the money. It's going to be your profit margin, your cash flow, your revenue. It's going to at least the financial drivers I'm talking about. That is going to be that, because there are other drivers as well, right? There are other drivers that the contract can feed into, and this is how we help you to determine that. So whenever I talk about helping my clients to identify value levers, this is what I'm talking about. And in this video, I've spoken mainly about the financial ones, because with all our customers, it always starts with the financial drivers. And then once we start working on those, then we're able to say, well, here are some other drivers that your contract and your contracting strategy can be a lever for and feed into. And these are the actions that you can take to improve the like quality, for example. You can use your contract as a value lever for quality, So there are other things, other things that we can use your construction contract to help you to drive value. But um, most of our customers, they start with the financial drivers, because in construction, as we know, the profit margins are very low, and therefore it's a huge focus for our customers. And then at some point, as we continue our relationship and we grow together, and they start understanding just how much how well they can leverage the contract to drive other value within the company, then they start you know allowing us to focus on using the contract in other areas of the business. So I hope this was very informative and that you've gotten something out of this. If you want to have a discussion on this or any of the other videos that I've prepared so far, you can drop me an email at hello@haywoodcommercial.co.uk, or you can find me on LinkedIn at Patricia Haywood ESQ. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.